Okay, I've put paint down on the palette, and you could put a little more on than I've used. I just want to show you how to set it up. You can spread it out further. This area isn't that large, but I put the paint out as far away as I can at opposite ends. This is, as I said, this is a much bigger palette, but this area that I'm recording from, this screen area, isn't that big. So I give myself a lot of area to mix, and I put the blue at one end, the red at one end, the yellow at the other end, and the white at the other end. So if I had a big palette, I would put things even further apart. I just want you to be able to see what I'm doing. And when I start using my paint, I dip my brush in the water, which is over a little bit out of screen. This is my brush, okay? And I use white because the white is very creamy and it makes my paint very opaque. And a lot of the paint that's here is not opaque, okay? So I just want you to understand how this paint works. It's rather transparent, and you have to sort of mix it up with the white to get a nice consistency. You see what I'm doing with the brush? I'm brushing it out to get it nice and creamy, and I can just put it on the paper and get a very nice thick even coating. Okay, so that's how I would get a nice opaque yellow. Now if I wanted to change the yellow slightly, I might dip my brush slightly into the red and into the corner, just the corner of the yellow. I don't go all the way in because I still want to keep my yellow clean. And I'm changing some of the color because I want to make it, let's say, more of a reddish yellow, and that's how I change the color. You see what I can do here? Okay? But I want my paint to be very opaque and flat. I'm just showing you how to mix color here. I'm not doing it inside the grid. And each time I swish it in the water to clean the brush, make sure the brush is clean. I wipe it on paper towel, and then I can go into a new color. And if I want to change, let's say I want to go into the blue. The blue is very, very strong. I go back into the white. Just take a drop of the blue. You have to be kind of careful with this color. Very strong. If I want a stronger blue, I could add more. But you'll see how dark it can get. It can get very, very dark. But always use the white paint because it makes the color very opaque. And if you use the paint full strength, it's not really intended to be used by itself. It's almost like a dye. And you'll use up a lot of paint that way. You'll almost be wasting paint. It's really meant to be mixed with the white to get a stronger color. I'll show you what I'm doing here. So if I want a deep blue, I'm adding it to the white rather than using the blue right out of the tube. And I can get a nice, opaque, strong blue this way. You see how nice and strong that blue is? And I can put it on the paper and get a very, very nice solid color. Now, if I were to use the blue by itself, without using the white, it would be quite dark. It might not show the character of the blue as well. And as I said, I would end up using up a lot of the paint that way. Okay? It's not that you can't do it, but it's not necessary. Okay? So here you can see the paint, if it goes on very thinly, will be very streaky. If you use too much water, it will also be very streaky. It's acrylic paint, it's not watercolor. It's meant to be very opaque, and you should use white paint to make it creamy and opaque. Okay, so I'm just trying to kind of get you used to this way of working with the paint. And what's unfortunate about being on Zoom is that I can't come around and help you. But I don't want you to waste a lot of the paint. That's the thing, is that this is not inexpensive paint, and I want you to save your paint. So don't squeeze a lot of the paint out. This red paint was kind of dried up. Don't squeeze a lot of the paint out ahead of time because it will dry up fast and you'll have to throw it away. You can always add more paint to your palette. Okay? I didn't have a lot of the red. So this makes a nice, kind of a nice purple, but I'm not getting much red here. Oh, here we go. Okay. Just be careful with your paint. Always start with a little. You can always add more color to it. Okay? And these brushes are wonderful because they allow you control. Because they're flat, you can fill in a small area very nicely. And the way to hold them, to get a small area to fill in, is to hold it almost straight up and down, almost like at a right angle to the paper. Okay, I can show you that another time. But I just wanted to get you used to working with the paint. And that's your palette. And you can fill up the whole palette area, and you can squeeze out more paint as you go, but it does dry up fast. It's water-based paint. It almost becomes like plastic. And you don't want it to dry out because you will waste paint. You just get used to working with acrylic paint. So a little bit at a time, use up the white, mix it into the color. Don't mix up a huge pile of paint because you might end up with a color you can't use. Swish your brush around in the water to clean it. If your water starts getting very milky, like this is starting to get, might be time to change the water because you want to keep your brush clean. If you don't have a lot of brushes, I have a lot of brushes, and I usually have a brush for each color, like a brush for the red, a brush for the blue, and a brush for the yellow to keep things clean, and I have different containers of water for each. But if you don't work that way and you're just using one container of water and one brush, just make sure you keep your brush clean or your color will get very muddy very quickly. Okay, and that's basically the whole secret to working with acrylic paint. Okay.